was saying F Boston. He was like, I listened to the podcast. You said the real word. When I meet Haley, I'm going to tell her that you changed my daughter to saying the real curse words.
Okay, what should we do for the intro?
The Welcome to Spinsters, a podcast where it was clear that the Celtics raised the rim an extra 2 inches to avoid giving the Warriors the opportunity to warm up. This is a track record of cheating by the Celtics establishment dating back to the 60s, and that is why they won. You could do something like that.
I think you just keep that.
Yeah.
I would keep, yeah.
Quick housekeeping before we get into it with Howard Beck from Sports Illustrated. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube. It's amazing. Do it. Next, we are plugging the Alan Cesaro Warriors ep again because he did an amazing GQ article with Toscano Anderson, the first Mexican citizen in the finals, which I just love. So listen to that episode, read that article, follow Alan Cesaro. He's amazing. After the break, Howard Beck.
I also just want to quickly say that I was taking a vacation and my friend Molly was there. And when I moved away from LA, she also moved away from LA. And she's one of my best friends. And she's not like a huge NBA fan by any means, but she told me that she listens to every episode because she feels like she's hanging out with us. Aww. Molly, I love you so much.
I love you, Molly. My Aquarius sister.
Yes.
Oh, that is so sweet.
I love you, Molly. Okay, now Howard Beck. I do want to talk about the Draymond stuff, not because I want to putting in our rundown that I think it's, I'm so past the point of like, our player pod's good, but I do think it's interesting that people have such an issue with it, and we could actually, you know what, let's just start there and then we'll get into actual final stuff. When players take over all the podcasts, because ultimately they are the experts on the game.
Yeah.
if we're being honest. And when they figure out that they're the ones who could break news ahead of time, it's a wrap for us. What will you guys do? Like, what will your new careers be?
You know, I've always thought that being a barista would be really fun work. I like people. I like coffee.
Nice.
You know, there's a future there. We don't know where the media environment is going to go, and it's changed a lot in my 30 years in the business. But coffee's forever, man. I don't know where newspapers will be, magazines, internet sites, podcast. Coffee is forever. So yeah, if the players take over the entire media space, it's going to be about coffee for me.
That's good. That's a great answer.
It's all I got. It might be because of the fact that I'm still like only about like 27% awake after another brutal late fucking night of NBA finals. And I'm not used to it anymore because it's been a few years. Like I did two games of the finals last year, and it was an abnormal finals still because we didn't have like full, access back. It wasn't completely normal. I only did 2 games. And then 2 years ago was the bubble, which I skipped. And so it's been like 3 years since I've actually had to do that whole thing where like, oh yeah, on the West Coast, things are normal. Then you go to the East and like the press conferences end at 12:30, 12:45. You're writing until 3 a.m. You can't fall asleep until like 4 a.m. Like, so yeah. Which, by the way, is also my caveat now ahead of time for the rest of this podcast, that anything I say that is incoherent, profoundly stupid, warped, it's possibly me, and it's possibly just sleep deprivation and the fact that I've had only 1 cup of coffee so far. So with all that out of the way.
No, that's fine. Yeah. This will be a satirical episode. Everything we don't mean anything that we say. Basically. Jordan, what about you? What are you gonna do?
I think I'm gonna lean into interior design. I think I'm just gonna go full into nothing sports related. Rich people will always pay people to style things for their homes. And I think that's what I'm going to do. That would be so fun to just shop for other people all day long.
Yeah, rich people will never have good taste.
Never. And they will always pay someone.
Yes. Take one look at the Architectural Digest videos, and you'll know that, the YouTube. Some of them do, but you can tell that they've had help.
Definitely.
You and Fred would also have a very cute HGTV show.
Wow.
I don't know what you would call it. You'd have to think about what you would call it.
Well, I've also watched a little bit of a show on Netflix called Motel Makeover, and that's kind of secretly an idea that I want to do, is like make over a motel, make it super Instagram worthy. The hosts on there, they were really annoying, ruined the show. But the idea, the concept, if I took over and Fred is like the handyman person drilling holes, which I don't even know if he would do. But for the show,
I'm like, can he drill
do.
holes? That's actually an
Not at all.
important question. Yeah. Because they build their own furniture when the budget's tight.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big thing in these small towns in Kentucky now, is that they're trying to make them like Instagram worthy, like give them like Instagram walls or do the umbrella thing. Oh yeah, because I mean, like,
banana leaf wallpaper.
What's the economy?
Instant.
Yeah, it's either you do that or you invite a crypto farm, like Hydro New Farm, to come. That is like honestly Eastern Kentucky right now. The government is like, come, coal's going out of business, so how can we ruin the environment some more? Crypto farm. I'm trying to go between, am I going to be a goat farmer or a sheep farmer? I can't decide. On one hand, you have to shave sheep, and while that intimidates me, I like watching the videos on TikTok. So, it's a skill I would be happy to learn. I don't know how you learn it. Or maybe there's a master class or something.
I see you goat for what it's worth.
Well, I grew up on a goat farm, so.
Totally.
There you go.
Fun fact, yeah. Their poop freaks me out, if I'm honest. It's teeny, so, yeah. But anyway, I'm leaning goat farm, so.
Great.
Now that we've got that settled. Howard, you were there, like you said. So I want to know, we just released an episode from our friend now, who's, I'm happy to say because he's awesome, Alan Cesaro, about how it was basically like reminiscing on Oracle, but also saying that there has been, to quote Harry's MO, like a huge vibe shift between the two arenas, and the fan base, although the episode was like, let's not leave the original fan base behind. So I'm curious what you thought about Chase. I remember very distinctly on the broadcast during game 1, they were like, Chase Center is alive, and they did a pan shot and like 3 people were standing up. I don't know if they're like paid to say that by Uber or something, but yeah.
I have many conflicting feelings on this. So I'm from the Bay Area originally. I grew up in San Jose. I was born in Oakland. And a lot of my first concerts and sporting events and everything else were either Oakland Coliseum or Oakland Coliseum Arena. And I was ball boy for a day at a Warriors game when I was like 9 years old because I won a contest at a children's shoe store where you put your name on a little card and throw it in the fishbowl and then they draw it. Wow. And I got to be ball boy. I got to be ball boy for a day. Yeah. Somewhere in a box in my mom's house, I hope there's a photo of that. I don't know. I've never seen it. We had fewer photos back then. It was a different time. And so like I have a little bit of a weird attachment to what was then known as Oracle before they vacated. But when I was growing up, it was just the Oakland Coliseum Arena. And that the vibe there. So when I was covering the Lakers especially, so I'm now going there a lot, right? The Lakers are playing 2 games a year in Oakland. There was no place in the NBA that I thought had a better ratio of attendance and passion to wins ratio, meaning a lot of attendance, a lot of passion, a lot of noise, not many wins. And I swear to God, in all the years that I've been covering this league, 25 years now, there's been a lot of shitty teams that I've seen in many different cities. I don't think I've ever been anywhere that was as consistently Full, passionate, just absolutely, just so dedicated to their team as the Warrior fans in Oakland. And look, in the Bay Area in general, right? Who knows what the breakdown is? I'm sure the Warriors know the analytics on like when the day they left, like how much of their crowd was actually from the East Bay versus the South Bay versus San Francisco. And of course you're going to lose something after decades there, moving into an arena that is bigger, and that is probably a different client base. That's the part that's hard. Like, people generalize very quickly, and I understand it. Like, well, this is what you lost. You abandoned Oakland, you abandoned all those fans, and this is a completely different. I don't know what percentage made the move season ticket wise across the Bay. And I was saying this to somebody the other day actually about this. I would be curious to know, this hypothetical experiment that we couldn't possibly do, if you took the crowd from Oakland exactly as it was on the last game there and just transferred it to Chase, would it sound the same as what we heard in games 1 and 2, or would it still sound different because the building itself is like twice as big? And there's a reason Oracle was Roracle, and it wasn't just the fans. It was also low ceiling, really compact. It reverberated, right? It's like Arco Arena back in the day for the Kings. Like, that place rocked. And it wasn't just the cowbells that they were ringing literally over my head on press row. It was a, what they call a bandbox or whatever. It was tiny. And architecture and physics have something to do with all this. The composition of the crowd probably has something to do with it. It's hard for me to parse that out. I thought the vibe was good for games 1 and 2, but nothing like what I heard last night in Boston, which is, for me, expected. This is the third finals I've covered here. I was here for the 2 against the Lakers in 2008 and 10, and Boston fans are bonkers. I mean that in all the possible ways, good and bad.
Yeah, we had how many times can I name drop this, Jordan? But we had Adam McKay on a couple episodes ago, and we were talking about how well we thought they did with their winning times portrayal of TD in the 80s, but just in general, it just felt very personal and like you were there and maybe understood the intensity of it on a different level. But did you guys see the Clay quote from after the game?
Very classy. Very classy, Boston.
What did he say? He was like, they were dropping F-bombs with children in the crowd. I'm like, have you been to a sporting event? Like, anywhere? Like, that was
Boston
happening
especially.
in my soccer games. Like, my middle school soccer games, parents were screaming fuck at the refs and everything. But not to like be insensitive of what players deal with, but then that's pretty par for the course.
So I wrote at length about profanity recently on SI.com. So this now makes me an authority on the subject. Also, the fact that I say fuck a lot also makes me an authority on the subject. So I'm just going to say this. I think there's like context matters. And like a single fan going like, fuck you. All right, that's a single fan. And then a security person's probably also going to walk up to, well, not in Boston. The security people don't care in Boston.
Yeah, they're yelling it. Yeah.
Yeah, they're the ones yelling it. In any other arena, someone's going to go up to that fan and say, sir, please chill the fuck out, or we're going to throw you out. There's a difference between that single person saying it and an entire crowd, thousands of people, maybe even 20,000 people chanting fuck you, Draymond, in sync. Also a difference between, so when I wrote about profanity a few weeks ago, it was the fact that the NBA had been cracking down on guys dropping F-bombs, players dropping F-bombs in press conferences. And if you're in the midst of a press conference and you say, man, I don't know what the fuck was going on with my free throw shooting. And it's just a throwaway word that you threw in for emphasis and kind of mindlessly, and it's not aimed at anybody. And the NBA is fining guys for that now, right? I think that's a little over the top by the NBA, but nevertheless, that's their policy. To me, that is a substantially different, qualitatively different, dramatically different than thousands and thousands of people in an arena that has both adults and children directing the F-bomb at a person. That's aggression. That's not a throwaway line. That's not emphasis. That's not just mindlessly throwing in a word that, kind of brings the sentence to life and shows your emotions. No, that's aggression. That is, And to me, I've always been uncomfortable with that. I don't even like the ref you suck chant. Like, and I say suck an awful lot. That came out very strangely.
This is a sex positive podcast.
I appreciate that. No, it's different. It's different when it's thousands of people chanting in unison the F-bomb and directed at a person. And it doesn't happen that often, by the way. Like, I don't remember the last time. Like, I've seen a lot of hostile crowds, and I was there for LeBron's first game back in Cleveland back in 2010 when he first went to Miami, which was by far the scariest environment I've witnessed firsthand. Like, just alarming. Did not know what was going to happen that night. And this wasn't that last night. This was just people chanting and yelling a lot of stuff. But yeah, it's different. Like, they were asked, right? Each of the players were asked. So when Clay is asked, when Steph is asked, when Steve Kerr was asked about the chants, they're responding. And they're responding kind of glibly, and they've got a kind of look on their face like, yeah, I know if I walk into this, like what we're going to be possibly provoking. So they were kind of like I felt like the gears were turning. They were splitting the difference between actually really seriously calling it out and just saying, yeah, classy, like kind of just sarcastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like, we heard it with Trae Young too in Madison Square Garden, and I feel like it was like a different tone. It was like, wow, Trae's becoming a villain. Like, look at him. He's actually doing things in Madison. Yeah, it was very intense. But this situation with Draymond, it's kind of like, how could you do this to Draymond? That's the tone that I'm getting. I don't know if you guys saw his wife post, this super long post being like, how Warrior fans would never. How are you guys doing this? And it's very interesting, the different tones of just recently when those chants have happened.
Yeah, it's funny to I guess what's funny to me about it, and I definitely don't want to ignore the fact that players do get in trouble for saying it, and they have far less, like the crowd, you have somewhat anonymity because you're in a huge group of people, even if you're just within your section, and it's harder to identify who's saying it. But like, Draymond embodies with his style of play the same feeling and emotion of someone yelling "fuck you." So I'm like a little bit.
That's his whole game, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
His game his game is basically "fuck you," and he would probably agree with that and embrace that, to be honest. So yeah, you're inviting you play within a certain level of aggression and antagonism, and you kind of invite it back, right? Like, I think that's fair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He said on his podcast, he's like, I'm glad my son was there to hear that. I don't know.
He said that?
Yes. He was like, we can go back and talk about this. And this is what he knows that his dad has gone through and been through. And that's the response that I expect Draymond to have. Because he is, his son was at the press conference. He was cussing right next to him. And
he said shit at one point. He said, I played like shit. And I'm looking at his son to see if his son reacted. And someone was just like,
Yeah. He just like laid down on the table. He's
it's
like,
late. Can I go to sleep now? His son that was me. Can I just go to sleep now? I'm tired.
Yeah.
It's like way past my bedtime. But yeah, it's Draymond.
I found Draymond very relatable last night and this morning when I woke up and saw his reaction to people not wanting him to podcast, because I'm like, I also have very average, workplace performances and then get on a podcast and then very defensive. So yeah, I was finding that very relatable, honestly. Howard's like, if I speak.
No, I was also getting texted by my editor while this was going on.
Yeah, your editor's like, I better not find out that you were on a podcast. I like Draymond's point about like, what would you rather me be doing? Because I guess the answer that a lot of people were giving him was like sleep, which is if you're too amped up after writing and watching about the game to sleep, which I think is totally valid, because with these late games, I rarely can fall asleep, which is something I miss for the West Coast, but it takes me like an hour or two. What if you're playing and you're in the middle of all that intensity. Like, how are you supposed to sleep right away? And the other defense that he had was people want me to watch game tape. Like, I don't know how readily available, I guess, because like the NBA.com doesn't upload those condensed games for a while. I know that they're on a team. He could probably get it ASAP, but I'm like, do you want some time to rest? But also, if you're going through the game and rehashing things, maybe it's not Warriors fans' dream that it's happening on a podcast where everyone can hear it, but like you are very much going back through the game. So I just feel like those excuses are a bit weird.
So I didn't realize that
or
this
not
was
excuses. Sorry,
the criticism. Yeah,
people being criticism.
Yeah.
I honestly, I didn't realize that this was a line of criticism against Draymond, that the podcast is somehow distracting him. It's actually funny. So just a quick like historical reference point for me covering the league. When Shaq came in, Shaq comes in, he's like doing commercials before he's played an NBA game, I think. He's doing a movie immediately, like maybe it's his rookie year or whatever. Then he's dropping rap albums. And at that time, it was a big thing to say like, oh, he should concentrate on his free throws if he wasn't so busy making rap albums. And this was a thing. And like, Shaq could have abstained from every other sort of entertainment and other outside work, and his free throws were still going to suck. Like it was not a question of dedication or practice or whatever. Dude practiced his free throws. He got advice from everybody, like possibly literally every single living person on earth. And he tried everything. He just couldn't shoot free throws. And it had nothing to do with making rap albums or making blue chips. And it's interesting that today, this discussion notwithstanding, because I didn't realize that people were criticizing Draymond and saying you should go watch film instead. In general, like guys are allowed to just do everything now, right? Everybody's making rap albums or is on Instagram or is, making movies or is, exploring viticulture or whatever, like investing in crypto. They're all doing everything, and it's no longer a thing where the second you see a guy who's got some hole in his game, you go like, oh, well, if you'd spent less time, buying NFTs, you'd be better, in pick and roll defense. I don't know. It doesn't happen that much. Like Draymond, the thing Draymond does best aside from playing basketball is talk and talk about basketball.
Well, that's part of his basketball game too.
Well, that too.
He talks
Fair.
even on
Yes.
the court. To be clear.
So
Yells,
like,
more likely.
I am always in favor of like, more candor and not less, more thoughts, not less. If he wants to finish with us at the dais and then go back and unload for 30 minutes into a Zoom H4n, as I am doing right now, then fine. Like the more insight we get into these guys that we cover, I think the better. And if he weren't doing that, would he be watching game tape? Probably not at that hour. Would he? I mean, he could though, Haley, by the way. He like they absolutely could get a download immediately of all the cuts of any sorted any which way.
I guess that's fair enough.
But at that point of the night, you're probably just trying to wind down or work through it or whatever. So yeah, I don't think it's that big a deal.
Yeah, you want to fall asleep? Like, I take a nap after every podcast we do. And I wake up at like 10:30. Like, what?
Yeah. But also it's like, are we, when I hear people say that, or when I see people tweet that at Draymond, like he was more prepared for the podcast than the game. He's not going to come out and score 30 points. Like, that's not what we're expecting from Draymond. So his 2 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, like that is a Draymond stat line. It was more of the other things, the passing or getting other people involved, him fouling out, I guess is what they're talking about. But the stats those are going to stay the same. Those are what I'm expecting from Draymond every time, right? Like, he's not.
Well, yeah, and I mean, like, he was having bad games way before he started his podcast. Like, do we remember 2019?
Yeah.
I mean, truly, I don't know, whatever. We don't have to spend any more time on it. I guess I don't want to waste the last 15 minutes. You're free on, like, whatever. Leave Draymond alone. Except for, like, the things he legitimately should be criticized for. But trust me, a podcast does not take that much energy.
No.
Or me and Jordan would.
As we've established, I'm barely awake.
Yeah, exactly.
Just talking. We're just chatting.
Jordan, what did you think about Game 3?
My overall thoughts were, especially that third quarter, again, that was really key. And before this finals even started, we talked a lot about the Boston inexperience, or, is that going to rattle them? I think I was the first to say they're going to be rattled. This is their first finals. They're back home. They're not going to be able to, really set into the stuff that they do. But they absorbed that Warriors third quarter run so well. And it's always been kind of put on a pedestal, this Warriors third quarter. But the fourth quarter comes right after. Like, the fourth quarter has to be the most important quarter. And it kind of doesn't matter what you do in the third if you don't do it in the fourth. So that was kind of my biggest takeaway, is that Boston is playing when it counts. They'd had a lead. The Warriors got it back, but then they finished the job. And that was something I don't think I was expecting from this young group. I was expecting them to kind of fold. Like, well, the Warriors have been here. They've done this before. The third quarter is their quarter. But they took the punch, and they gave one right back. And that was exciting to watch, and also impressive, I guess, for this young group.
Yeah, they're if you can absorb it, the things that the Warriors can throw at you, which are basically like coming back, and not letting them continue that momentum further into the fourth. Not forcing turnovers, which again, I think is honestly more something the Celtics control than the Warriors defense. I'm not shitting on the defense. I just think that's how good the Celtics are. And using their own defense to prevent, like, the thing the Warriors need to win. I love when games and series are simple enough that, like, I could explain it to a baby. And basically, if the Warriors want to win, they need 3 guys that have big offensive games. And I know that's the criticism that everyone's having of Draymond, but, like, he's not that guy. He's not going to be that guy. And his shortcomings last night expanded further than that. But yeah, that's really what the Warriors need. So if Boston could withstand that, I am also surprised that a team this young and not just inexperienced in the finals, but the first game they showed that stat of not only them not making it to the finals and having no finals experience prior to this, the Warriors, like, vast advantage in that department. But Howard, what are your keys to the game if you were explaining this to the same baby? We gotta find a baby. Just make sure that, like, we're really getting through to them.
Is this baby old enough to actually understand English, or just like, mama, dada, and, go potty?
Let's go. Okay, let's revise this to my 6-year-old, almost 7-year-old cousin, Keegan,
right.
who yesterday, I gotta say, pretty smart, because he was saying that we should build a train that is connected. They're all connected and they go everywhere in the world. And my aunt was like, well, we can't because the world is majority water. And he was like, you know what? You're right. There's ocean water, sink water, backwater. I was like, this kid is
going places.
Yeah, he's going places. So 7-year-old Keegan is the bar here.
All right. Well, Keegan, thank you for joining us here today to help us with our analogy. So first thing is this. The one impression that has stayed with me through these first 3 games, period, is just that the Warriors are having to work really hard a lot of the time. There was a point I think it was Clay who ended up with the 3. Clay hit this big 3 at one point last night, and it was after the Warriors had made, 732 passes. That might be a slight overstatement, but it was a lot. It was a lot. It was a lot of passes. They just couldn't find any open space. And to their credit, they kept moving it. And to their credit, they finally found an open shot. And I think it was Clay who hit it. But man, watch the Celtics defense on a possession like that, and you think, like, I don't know how the Warriors are even in this game at times. And their 3-point shooting kept them alive. Clay and Steph kept them alive. But yeah, Haley, you nailed it. Like, they need a third scorer, and sometimes they even need a second. I wrote this after game 2, that through 2 games, they've got it. The series is tied, and they had a really nice game too. And this thing is certainly still up for grabs. But for the first time in their 6 finals in 8 years, there's no real clear number 2, much less a third option. Because Klay is not the old Klay, and Kevin Durant is not there, and certain guys just aren't ready yet. And Jordan Poole had a breakthrough season and has had some really nice moments in the playoffs, but he's not that guy right now. And so that's why, by the way, the whole stat about finals experience was both relevant and overdone. Yeah, a ton of finals experience between Steph, Klay, Draymond, and Iguodala. But Iguodala is now a bit player on this team. And this Klay is not that Klay. And by the way, may well get there, but he just came back in January after 2.5 years off and 2 very serious injuries. Like expecting him to be 2018 Klay or something is crazy. But we saw it like last night, like every so often that guy comes back, and can he do that enough times for them to win this series becomes the question. But outside of that core group, Andrew Wiggins had never been anywhere in the playoffs, much less the finals. Jordan Poole hadn't been. Kevon Looney was along for the ride the last time. He was a little bit more than along for the ride, but he was not a core piece in this sense. So they've got guys who are just figuring this out along the way too. And the fact is the Celtics, by and large, 1 through 7, 1 through 8, are bigger, more athletic, stronger, younger, sprier, and that's what the Warriors are really up against. And does your experience outweigh all that, or enough to get you through the series? So, we overreact to everything we just saw. Always prisoners of the moment on NBA Twitter. Game 1, Warriors are toast. Can't see how they possibly even win this series. They're completely outmatched. Game 2, it's like, well, they solved that. They're going to go and they're going to take at least one. They're going to split it in Boston at minimum, and they got it going again. They're fine. Game 3, they're toast. They've got no chance. Now, if Steph is seriously hurt, they are toast.
Yeah.
And that's the big caveat, and the big, like, this is the news we're all waiting for today as we're recording this, right? Like, we don't, like, that I've seen no updates while we've been talking. Hopefully I haven't missed anything along the way, but we don't know. That looked serious in the moment if you just judged it by the reaction on Steph's face and the way he looked on the court as he's laying there. And he downplayed it in the press conference with us afterward. I didn't notice any limp walking in and out of the press conference by him. Somebody else wrote that they saw him limping as he was going to the bus. So maybe he hit it well coming in and out of the press conference room. Not sure. We'll know soon enough. But like that is obviously as serious a concern as you can have. They can't have Steph at less than 100%. They can't miss him for a game. Like somewhere in there, is there a Jordan Poole, Renaissance game where because at his best, he does this kind of Steph impression where you go, whoa, did the Warriors find their next star? And then, the other times you're like, where did Jordan Poole go? Is he in this game? But they're not winning this series with Jordan Poole trying to do Steph impressions.
No.
Yeah.
And also in addition to you saying that pointing out, not just saying that the Celtics are younger, more spry, stronger. They're also at 1 through 8 much better scorers. And then this Warriors team, and while Steph might count enough for like 1 through 3 to hold the advantage, it's after that, it's not right now with this current Klay, with Jordan Poole being as young as he is, and so not super consistent yet in these playoffs. The Celtics have the advantage there. I mean, it's funny when you watch Andrew Wiggins now, because I love seeing the beautiful glides to the basket that we saw that he had like in spurts with the Wolves. But still, like, he is very much, I saw this tweet yesterday from Iman from Dishes and Dimes where she was like, there's no reason that Andrew Wiggins isn't better than he is. And that is, if you never watched basketball, you would think this guy is up and coming. He's going to be incredible. But it's been years at this point. Like, we kind of know what he has to offer, even though it's been so much more with the Warriors. And, you know, just like even effort wise. And then, I mean, what else do you Otto Porter? I love when Otto Porter scores because I remember he exists.
Hey,
I think that's why he scores.
That's a
He's
Max
like,
guy.
Don't forget about me.
Yeah. But I think that you are dead on, and I am worried about the Warriors. And I honestly do not. That's not an overreaction, although most things are. I hope Steph's okay. I was listening to the Low Post this morning, and something Zach said was so true, because he said, you know, when a player is probably actually feeling somewhat like maybe in the moment, maybe they know long-term hurt, when they don't just look like they're hurt, they're not just wincing, they look pissed. Because a lot of players can sell the wincing because they want the foul in the moment. No shame in that, because they shouldn't. That's just how it goes. But when they look mad, yeah, that's an indicator.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
I was like, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. No, because there's a realization that hits them immediately, like, oh shit, this may be serious and I could be out. And also because of the circumstances, right? Like, nobody from the Warriors called it out as a dirty play or anything like that last night. There was nobody implying that. But it is the kind of thing where, you know, a scrap for a loose ball and somebody falls on you. Those are like, it's interesting the way basketball people, I'm not counting myself as this. I'm just a reporter who writes about the game. But when it comes to coaches, players, scouts, people who really work in the game, the fine line between what is hustle play that happened to cause an injury versus what is quote unquote dirty or quote unquote broke the code, as Kerr put it with the Dylan Brooks play on Gary Payton a couple rounds ago. Like, it's a fine line, and I don't pretend to understand exactly where that line is. But Al Horford fell on him while scrapping for that ball, and like, is a debate going to now ensue? We'll find out soon enough. Media availabilities are coming up in a little bit here, but like, I don't know how much of that will be a line of questioning on our side of it, and how much they might indulge. But where is that line? Like, you know, is 6'9", 240-pound, whatever Al Horford is, like, falling on Steph Curry's foot while going for the ball. Is that fair game? It's the finals. Like, my general default, again, I just as a paid observer and nothing more, is shit, it's the finals. You're gonna do everything possible to go for every 50-50 ball and hustle plays and all that stuff we talk about. Like, of course. Where's the line? Is the line only when you accidentally do injure somebody, and now you've crossed the line, but up until then it was okay as a hustle play? Like, I don't know. Again, these are really murky definitions, and but I think Steph, in the moment, to Haley's point, like, there's that realization where he's going, shit, this could be really serious, and if it is, this feels like the last one, and if it is, we're done.
Jordan, you played. What do you think that line is?
I was gonna say, like, it is hard, but to me, just watching that, it just seemed unfortunate. Like, they were all going for the ball. It was like multiple scrums. Like, that was the second scrum after the ball popped out, and it just seemed like wrong place, wrong time, because Al Horford wasn't. He ignored that Steph was even there. He was just going for the ball, trying to get the possession. Just so happened there's a big weight difference there. There's a height difference there. And that's just not the person that you want. If it was like Peyton Pritchard or somebody, like, it would be okay. But it is a hustle play. Sometimes when it's a dirty play, I think you even just go for, are you going for the ball? That's kind of the baseline that I think of. That Dylan Brooks, you're swinging down, you're pulling your arm back, you're trying to make this like incredible block, and this huge play didn't go well. But in that sense, it was a hustle play. It seemed unfortunate. I really hope that he's not actually hurt. I totally agree with the pissed thing. I know when I hurt my shoulder, it's immense pain, and it's, shoot, this is not going to end well. I know that I cannot move my arm. I know I cannot play tomorrow. Like, you just think the next day. So I'm upset. I'm mad. Just as a lover of the game, somebody who wants to play all the time, you immediately get mad when you get that taken away from you. So seeing Steph and Draymond say, he made his last foul because he heard Steph yelling on the ground, like crying out, it seemed like. I just hope it's not serious. I hope it was just an unfortunate hustle basketball play.
Yeah, I'm gonna light a candle. Yeah, I got one of those candles. I got it at one of those crystal shops. That's like for good, when you need a good thing to happen.
Does it work on NBA injuries? Has it healed anybody's ankle yet?
We're gonna see. We're gonna see. But the Warriors need it, so maybe I've been subconsciously saving it for a moment like this.
I was going to say it would be possible. I know we're going to wind down, but it would be the worst possible ending to this finals if it's with Steph on the shelf or Steph hobbled or whatever. Like, you never want to see in any series, but especially like this is a dynastic team that made this amazing run back to a place that we weren't sure they could get to, and it shouldn't end this way. Like, it shouldn't end with Steph like in street clothes or something, or hobbling around like Willis Reed in Game 4. It's. That would be a profound bummer. I always, we have no rooting interest in this business. We root for stories, root for games to end sooner than 1 a.m, and root for good games and good series. And so it's and you don't want to feel like it was like not the true test. And again, this is not to say asterisk or any of that stupidity. It's just that you want teams at full strength. And so that when someone's crowned the champion, you go like, yeah, damn, that was a great series. And we saw both teams completely give it their all. And especially, it's Steph Curry. Like, nobody on earth, I think, roots against Steph Curry. Everybody wants to see him healthy and at his best, even if you're rooting for the Celtics to win.
Yeah, exactly.
Just basketball fans. Like, just as a lover of basketball, you do not want this type of ending at all.
Well, especially for the Warriors too, because this is how it all ended for them last time. So you just don't, and like in droves too, not just with one player. And that you're right, they fought back to it. And I guess the last thing I'll say before asking you guys your final Game 4, I don't want to put you on like prediction watch because who knows, but just thoughts, is that if Steph is in street clothes, I fucking hope that it's not what Chris wore last night, because that red jacket was bizarre.
With the red pants?
Chris chose. Yeah.
Horrible. Like, what?
And also read the arena. Don't wear an all red outfit when everyone's going to be in green. It's not a good look. Yeah.
Looked like, I've often said never here, but I guess just like, trust me, MMA fighters have the worst fashion of any sport. And even like in Europe, where they all still wear like the tightest skinny jeans you've ever seen. And that is what I immediately thought of. It was an all-time bad outfit. Yeah, but shout out to him for taking a risk, but for absolutely nothing else. Okay, what about Game 4? Any closing whatevers? Not prediction, thoughts, anything, emotions?
I always say like it's foolish for us to try to predict these things, and it's the dumbest thing like that we all do to each other. Like, so who's gonna win Game 4? Like, fuck if I know. Like, I mean, I'm not if I knew that, I'd be like doing a gambling pod instead, or or I'd just be making a lot of money like Bob Voulgaris and not have to write game stories until 3 a.m. Look, let's go on the premise that Steph is healthy-ish. Mm-hmm. I don't think we can say healthy. That he's healthy enough to play like Steph. In that case, I'd be stunned if the Warriors lost another game. Like, I fully expected a split in San Francisco and a split in Boston. That's the kind of series I was expecting. Among the other dumb predictions that we were asked to make, we're always asked to predict the series, and so we do it, and I don't really care one way or the other. I just make my best guess in 5 seconds or less, and that's it. I said Warriors in 7, which means I think it's a coin flip, which means I leaned their way slightly because of some combination of experience and home court advantage, but wasn't all that confident in it. So yeah, I would have expected a split in Boston. So if they lost Game 3, I'm automatically just going, oh yeah, I guess they're going to win Game 4 because I expected a split. But Steph's injury and his status does cast a shadow over all that. And look, last night was another one of those games where most of the first half you're like, man, the Celtics got their number. Celtics are just too big, too fast, too strong. They're getting to the hoop repeatedly. They're done. And then they come out and the Warriors have another one of those third quarters. You go like, oh yeah, they could do that.
Yeah.
And so, and then they open the fourth quarter with 4 turnovers in the first 6 possessions. You're like, oh yeah, the Warriors, they can do that. They're really good at turning the ball over. So these things can flip so quickly. Phil Jackson had a lot of like weird, funny little sayings and sometimes mangled expressions. But in this case, it's not a mangled expression. It's just like some old timey thing. But he'd say that the games can turn on a trifle. Turns on a trifle. I loved that expression. It is really strange. And I don't remember where he picked it up, if it was a Tex Winter thing or whatever. But he'd even say, well, these things can turn on a trifle. And It is. It's like it's one turnover and a run out. It's, somebody's sprained ankle. It's one bad call at the wrong time, whatever. And for the Warriors, I think the margin of error is smaller in this series than they've had in the past. And so the trifle is that it's turning on is somebody gets hot for a few minutes, or Steph and Clay both get hot, or they start reverting to old bad habits and coughing the ball up, because the Warriors have had turnover problems since forever. So I don't know what all that adds up to, other than I hope Steph can play at some level close to Stephness in Game 4 so that we get a decent game.
I am literally too fucking dumb to have a podcast, because for the first 3 minutes you said that, I was like, the dessert? I could not get past the Great British Bake Off episode where they have to make a trifle, and I was like, because the layers are like, what?
My daughter loves that show. It's
that's great.
I haven't watched the full one. I just kind of like passed through. I'm like, oh, it's the show where I get really hungry. Like that stuff looks really good. The other trifle, something trifling, small,
right? Like a little,
right?
yeah. Not tiny thing. Yeah.
But your version, Haley, is much more interesting. If it turned on like a that's pastry. Is that pastry? What would you call a trifle?
The trifle's like the layered dessert where it's like sponge cake, and then you got like a pudding type thing. I forget what they call that in England.
But if the game turned on that would be way more interesting and fun.
Yeah, I was like, I was trying to. I mean, look, Phil goes. There's layers to what he says.
There you go.
Jordan, what about you? Sorry, Howard. I know we're going over, but
no, it's cool. I got to get out of here in a couple minutes, but we're good.
Yeah.
It's a short walk to the arena, at least.
I was just gonna say, I'm looking forward to seeing if we can top a 7-point possession, because that was wild, and that's what you call turning on a trifle. Like one possession gets 7 points. Me and my fiance were trying to see if that is the max amount of points. And the only way that you get past that is if when Otto Porter made that 3, if he also got fouled and it was also a flagrant foul, and then it starts all over again. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Or he misses the free throw and then they get the rebound and it just continues the possession in perpetuity. So, no, that was, I do not think in 25 years I'd ever actually seen a 7-point play before.
Reggie Miller's like, all right. But yeah, that was before my time. I think the one thing for me that was a teeny trifle observation that I actually think is indicative of the Warriors completely is that, like you said, they had their very characteristic, typical thing that they do of passing until they find the open shot, but the difference now is that those passes have never been, I don't want to say sloppier, but like closer calls. As they are moving the ball around, Boston is on them. They don't look good. They're not in the best positioning. And that was strange and very un-Warriors-like. So I thought the actual passing, while they did the same thing of finding the open guy most of the time, the passes themselves were not good often. And so that was, for me, the thing that kind of turned me on the Warriors' chances in Game 4. But sorry we went over.
All good.
Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. Let us know how many fuck yous you hear in game 4?
Keep a count.
I'm old school, so I do still keep a notebook, and I was still scribbling last night. And every time there was the "fuck you, Draymond" chant, I wrote down in quotes "fuck you, Draymond" on my notepad to note when it had happened in case I wanted to go back and like reference it later. But then there's also the fact that the press section is like embedded within, where the fans are, and there's the people right behind us. Like, you're hearing everything they're saying and shouting too, just even individually. And like, man, a lot going on. There's a lot going on. But Jordan, Haley, this has been a blast. Love the podcast. Glad we got to finally do this. Appreciate you having me on. Hope I was at least semi-coherent, and hope I did not break the record that I sent many years ago on Zach's podcast for F-bombs, which I believe they beeped.
All good. We don't beep here. Come back in the off season when you have gotten as much sleep as we have.
Yes. And we'll put together a barista plan for you. I want that for you.
Thank you. It's my dream. And by which I mean I'm half asleep and still dreaming.
Yeah.
Thank you, Howard.
Take care, all. Thank you.